absolutely breathtaking display of chess ability, intellect, beauty, and wit by the innocent 200 elo player and Adam. The game begins with pawn to e4, and the brilliance already begins on the first move of the game as Adam breaks away from traditional chess principles and plays a hyper-modern, neo-fashionable opening, the Aljochen's defense, which is an opening where you disregard opening principles. You do not put pawns in the center of the board to control space. In fact, you actually induce moves like pawn to e5 from your opponent, which would attack your knight and kick it out into the middle of the board. The move knight to f6 is known as the Aljochen's defense. And the best move against it is to play the move e5. Black rotates around and then tries to undermine the pawn. White here plays already a gambit, bishop to c4. This is known as the 200 elo gambit, and you have actually given up the pawn on e4 completely. But you are doing it because you are baiting your opponent in, and then you would like to set up a scholar's mate. You're actually not exactly losing the pawn if you find the sequence bishop f7, king f7, queen h5, check, king g8, queen d5, e6, queen takes e4, but I'm not really sure that that was really White's idea. And for that reason here, Adam plays the move e6, which, by the way, already completely puts to bed all scholars' mate opportunities, because the queen and the bishop now cannot even team up on the f7 square, given that the bishop is now blunted. Well, that does not stop our protagonist with the white pieces, who still plays the move queen to f3 after 2 seconds of thought. 200 elo autopilot does not allow you to adapt to your surroundings, and it can prove fatal, because even though the queen does not even see the pawn and the bishop does not even see the pawn, you still go for it. Now, black could play pawn to d5 here, bishop out. Black plays the move pawn to b6, which is trying to play bishop b7, which would then counterattack the queen in the center. White here does not go for pawn to e5, which would simply be a bad move, attacking the knight and the rook at the same time. And instead, white plays d4. I don't really hate the move d4. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. 2 pawns in the center of the board is what every single 200 elo player should be shooting for. And now we have the move bishop to b7. Bishop b7 puts pressure on the pawn on e4 like this, and white has a couple of ways of defending it. White can defend it with the bishop. White can defend it with the knight. White can defend it with the knight like this. White could also maybe push the pawn in the center of the board and block the bishop, or pin the knight to the queen. None of that happens, and instead we have knight to e2, which is still a good move, developing and trying to castle the king. Black here, obviously, with the last couple of moves, has aligned the pressure on the pawn on e4, and you would expect the move bishop takes e4 to come in, or you would expect the move knight takes e4 to come in, but instead black plays something even better, according to Stockfish, which is the move bishop to b4 check. Throwing in what is known as a Zwischenzug, an in-between move before taking the pawn on e4, because after all, it is not going anywhere. Now black plays knight c6, foregoing the plan of bishop takes pawn, blocking in their own bishop, but defending the bishop on b4, which frankly is all we could really hope for at this level. Now white plays the move c3. It is not a good idea to leave your bishop out in the open like this among the enemy pawns, because your bishop could very easily get trapped. Black definitely should have relieved the pressure here, or taken first and then relieved the pressure, because now white plays an absolutely outstanding move and the bishop needs to absolutely retreat. The bishop doesn't retreat, however, and we have bishop to a5, and now the natural follow-up here is pawn to b4, simply rendering the bishop useless, and not just useless, but frankly, dead, because pawn takes bishop will occur on the next move. But white has something else in store for us and plays the move pawn to e5, counter-attacking the knight in the center before the move b4 is played. Here, black plays a move which definitely looks like a blunder, but is actually an absolute brilliancy. Knight takes e5, spending about a minute of thought on that move, and it was a minute well spent. Knight takes e5 is a discovered attack on the queen by the bishop, a peekaboo, if you will. If pawn takes knight is played, bishop takes queen is played. If queen takes bishop is played, knight takes bishop is played, and black has won a pawn. But white does something even better. When you are faced with a trade of bishops, instead you should just lose one or free. Knight takes bishop on the board, and Adam has struck with a discovered attack. The knight gallops out to g3. Now bishop takes g2 is on the way. Knight takes d2, knight takes b2, and the white position is absolutely falling apart. But when faced with the prospect of taking multiple free things, including the fact that you have just played multiple moves in a row with the knight, For some reason, our protagonist Adam gets a little bit scared of the disturbance of the arrival of the horse, and he plays the move pawn to g6. There is nothing inherently wrong with the move pawn to g6, but anytime you move up pawn to a light square, you have to remember that it used to stand probably on a dark square, unless it's the first move of the game. And now the dark squares are a little bit weak, and actually a fantastic move is played here by white, who plays queen to h6, and infiltration of the dark squares. The king is feeling a little bit unpleasant, but Adam does not miss an opportunity twice, gallops to the other side of the board, grabs an extra pawn with the sauce on the side to go, and forces the rook to move, and slides the bishop back to f3. Adam has a 5-point material advantage now, as early as the 12th move of the game, which is borderline decisive advantage for most of the elo ladder, but definitely not the elo ladder at the 200 level. White plays queen g7, an absolutely fantastic move, driving the queen into the territory. It's a really bad move because rook to g8 just defends everything, and now the queen is booted and white continues to get absolutely punished over here. But black overreacts to the threat, which is why at this level of chess you need to create as many threats as possible. Black completely overreacts, plays king to e7, and now has given up all of the advantage because the queen is defending the rook and the king is defending the knight. But a couple of moves ago you took a little bit of careless attitude toward your dark squares, and after king to e7, white delivers bishop to g5, which is basically the kiss of death, because now white is going to play bishop f6 or queen f6, and it's going to be brutal. Bishop f6 wins the queen. You would expect the king needs to move or the queen needs to move, but if the queen moves, white gets 2 pieces to go, the king is out in the open, and probably it is mate to follow. So instead of that, our protagonist Adam plays the move d5, which not only loses the knight, but it also loses the queen. He had a good start to the game, but as all 2 and 300 elo games go, he has succumbed to the pressure, and he is probably going to lose. But you haven't seen nothing yet. Now, white is up a queen, so what should the queen do? Hunt. The queen should take as much free stuff as possible, or white should play moves like knight to d2, which target multiple things and get exchanges. And let's not forget that the move b4 is always possible. White just has a bishop that is going to die on the edge of the board at any moment. A queen needs a little bit of help, but in this case, the queen does not have help. The queen has just an army behind her. It's not even a matter of help. White in this position plays knight e2. So again, I say this in many of my videos. If you are watching this and you are a newbie, 8 or 9 times out of 10, the best move in the position is not going backwards. It is almost always possible to make a forward move in the position that does something and achieves something. Knight to e2. Knight to d2 is a very good move. Knight to e2 is not a good move. Knight to e2 does nothing. I mean, maybe you want to reroute the knight to f4, but you have not made any progress in your position. When you are up material in chess, you have to utilize the material that you are up. The bishop goes back to h5. As I said, the best move is often not going backwards. Knight f4 is a great move. Now we're going to take the bishop and we're going to trap the bishop. The more pieces that white can trade, the easier this game is going to get. Black plays h6. White doesn't even hesitate, grabs the bishop. Fantastic. Fantastic chess. Black here doesn't take the knight for some reason and attacks the queen.
no, no, no.